everybody, and welcome to the Engaging Associate Faculty Series. My name is Kate Johnson. I'm the Manager of Faculty Engagement here at Ashford. Thank you so much for joining us for Session 7, featuring Dr. Jen Robinson from the College of Education. This is the 7th in a series of 12. If you haven't seen the previous series, I will send out an email with links to the previous sessions. They're really great. They're very varied, and they have a lot of great nuggets of information. Jen is joining us from Germany today.
Yep.
Just because she didn't have any other, she just wanted to be there. We're really excited for her to talk about engaging partnerships. Jen has talked to me a lot about what she does within her program, how she works with her faculty and students, and I thought she would be a great example of a practice of engagement that you all could learn from, and take what you like and leave the rest. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Again, remember to change that drop down to all panelists and attendees so we can all see the questions. And without further ado, please welcome Jen.
So before we get going, and if you've been in anything with me in any conversations, you'll know that I tend to jump into conversations. I refer to it as interrupting. So if as I'm going through this, if you think of something, want to share something, please don't be afraid to interrupt me. I will not be offended. So I'm wondering, do you remember that first day of teaching? The age and the level of the student doesn't matter. That first day of teaching is something very special. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it was 20 years ago. I had that nervous excitement that made me feel like I was hungry, but I also wanted to vomit. Of course, that it can be terrifying, yes. Of course, my first day was in a middle school classroom, and being in a middle school classroom can make you feel that way. And I was so excited to meet my students, and I was afraid that they would learn nothing from me. I had this fear of not being able to make my classroom inclusive, and I wanted every single person in that room to know they belonged. I felt the same way the day I started teaching adults, and I was thrilled to receive my first adjunct teaching position. I loved walking in and telling my middle schoolers they had the college teacher because that meant they were the smartest in the school. I flew high on cloud 9 for a really, really long time. I loved teaching. I was looking forward to that college classroom and talking about epistemology and teaching history and research after days of helping my English language learners interpret Jabberwocky in English class and helping tweens understand the importance of finding a really good book and then helping their parents learn English in the evening. It was the perfect pairing of teaching K-12 during the day and university in the evenings. I loved that constant mental stimulation. But my first adjunct teaching position was really tough. I felt like I was a warm body with a PhD instead of a member of an academic body. I still worked as hard as I could, and I made myself available to my students, and I spent all of my time outside of teaching elementary and middle school to provide excellent classes for undergraduate and graduate students. I was able to continue to cut my teeth in higher education, teaching at this face-to-face college. I modeled excellent teaching, I provided a robust discussion, I kept my lectures to a minimum, and I structured my class to be interactive and workshop-oriented. However, as an employee, I felt like an afterthought. My opinion did not matter, much beyond making sure my I's were dotted and my T's were crossed on my final grade reports. My end-of-course surveys and performance evaluations in this face-to-face classroom were always above average, but it was clear that I was not a member of the academic community. I was on the outskirts of this entire group. My opinion did not matter. My ideas did not matter. It only mattered that I showed up on time to teach my class. I turned in my paperwork, and I otherwise kept to myself. I was very lonely in that adjunct position. I felt like I did not belong, and I certainly did not feel a sense of contribution or productivity in this position. I only met one or two other full-time faculty while I was there, and they were only in my classroom to evaluate me, not to engage in any conversations. We know from research that this disconnect is not a positive experience for adjunct, or in our case, associate faculty. Perceived outsider status leads to disconnection, lack of belonging, decreased production and contribution to the teaching and learning process. On the other hand, we know that a strong sense of community leads to increased productivity, contribution, belonging, and engagement. That first adjunct teaching position ended with sweeping reductions in teaching faculty, whether it was full-time or part-time, due to hard economic times for small colleges. Despite how I felt, I was really sad to leave that job. And it wasn't because of the extra income, which of course is always nice. I felt really alone in that position, but I loved the students and I loved learning with them. Still, I learned quite a bit. My second adjunct position was the exact opposite. I was part of a group of 20 other part-time faculty who had a 3/4 time faculty as the lead of our little professional learning community. Our professional learning community leader was a full-time science teacher in Maine, but she worked 3/4 time with this other large online university as our PLC leader, and she taught part-time. Erin was an example of servant leadership in action. In fact, this university did everything they could to make our little small PLC part of the larger university. We met weekly, which was required by our contract. However, these meetings never felt forced or uncomfortable. Our opinions and ideas were valued. We often received emails from full-time faculty who worked with our PLC leader. And these emails were to ask us more about ideas, confirm, or to further explain things that we had questions about. We were listened to and we belonged. After teaching with this other university for 2 years, I was hired full-time with Ashford. And I just am on my 3-year anniversary today. So that's really exciting to be able to do this on my 3-year anniversary. After the new faculty teaching experience, I became a core faculty in the Master's of Arts in Education program. And I was immediately curious how to help my associate faculty feel as that they were part of our team. So Alan Belcher and I applied for and received a UFP grant to create and study professional learning communities with 2 courses that we were leading. We collected data about how our faculty felt about how much they belong, contribute, and how much they feel part of Ashford. It was my experience in the isolating adjunct teaching faculty position that confirmed my desire to make sure that none of my associate faculty ever felt the way I had. And Erin had been the perfect example of how to make that happen. While Alan and I were collecting data from our PLCs, I was promoted to a position where I found myself as leader of a full program and a brand new group to me of associate faculty. And this really pushed me to reflect on the differences in the 2 adjunct faculty positions I just told you about. And I had to ask myself some really hard questions that we were also trying to understand through our PLC research. How do I help my associate faculty feel that they belong? How do I help my associate faculty feel that they can contribute freely? How do I help my associate faculty feel that they are intelligent and professional members of our academic community? And most of all, how do I help my associate faculty feel as though they are partners in my program, in our program? I have it written as our, not mine, I promise. The study that Dr. Belcher and I did found that faculty desperately wanted clear communication that was not contradicting. Without intentional communication, adjunct faculty, or in our case, associate faculty, will feel an increased sense of isolation. And that lack of communication can lead to a lack of identification with a university or a college. And we want adjunct faculty to feel a sense of identification, because that sense of identification can help them supporting our students. So while preparing for this presentation, there were two things that just kept bouncing around in my mind that I'd heard through a few of the Engaging Associate Faculty webinars. The first thing was when Dr. Dixon Anderson reminded us that many of our associate faculty are at the mercy of a gig economy right now. They might contract with multiple universities, or they work full-time and teach with other universities and with us. In this gig economy, a solid foundation of trust needs to be forged. Dr. Kelly Olson Stewart reminded us that our associate faculty need to know who their person is. In a gig economy, a trusted person is ever more important. They wanted to know who their person was. So I decided when I began as a program chair that I would be that person for my associate faculty, and it was my promise to my program. By not having communication with a trusted person, we are just another gig in the gig economy. So by laying the foundation of trust, commitment, and communication, we can be more than a gig and forge those partnerships with our associate faculty. So for this presentation, I reached out to my faculty for a temperature check, as Dr. Jessie Harkins would say. And I wanted to know how we were doing as a team and what needed improvement. So I just sent an informal email, and then I held my breath for a few days. Before I tell you about that though, I think it's important to stress that it took me almost a year and a half to build this foundation of trust with my faculty. And this came through building many bridges between me and them in the program, and then with them and our students. When I became program chair, I sent out surveys to all of my associate faculty, and I made sure that it was something that when they sent the information back to me, their names were removed. I really wanted raw honesty from them. And I wanted to know where they saw themselves in the program and what I could do to make their experience at teaching with Ashford better. The surveys were anonymous. I didn't collect their names. I wanted the truth, even if I wasn't going to like what I was reading. And interestingly enough, they found the biggest theme that I found was communication. Exactly what Dr. Belcher and I found through our PLC research. And it was that theme of communication. They felt disconnected. They desired to be respected as the professionals they are. They wanted opportunities to move around, teach more classes, and have an opinion in the building of our courses. So I started this whole thing with a very small get to know you webinar way back when. And because of all of our schedules, it had to be several different times. And then I sent out the recordings. So we were all still getting to know each other, even if it was through a recording. Then after that, I sent out another survey, and I thought, they want to be involved with developing courses. So let's bite the bullet on one of our introductory courses. And I sent out information. This course needed a major overhaul, and the feedback that I got from them helped shape the direction of the course. This group of faculty had been teaching this course longer than I had been at Ashford, so they really knew what needed to happen to make this better. And I asked about textbook options, articles, and activities to include. For the personal and a little more touchy-feely part of this building a team, I hand wrote out Christmas cards, and I sent them out. when I caught folks doing some really neat, innovative, fun stuff, I send Starbucks gift cards to them, just something to let them know I see them, they belong, and I care that they're a part of this team. And finally, I brag about them. From published articles to becoming chair of state educational organizations, I brag about them. I brag to my college, I brag to others in our team, and then I help set them up to be resources to each other. Slowly, after about 1.5 years, this team began to send me emails without prompting, suggesting changes. And I was really happy to receive these emails. It was a huge breakthrough. I wasn't having to ask. They were just doing it. I was reaching Erin status, my PLC leader from when I was at that successful associate faculty position. I felt like I was finally reaching Erin status. I always want to know, and I always ask, what can I do to help? And I ask it really often. Every time a new course starts, even if it's a faculty who's been at Ashford longer than I have been, I send an email and say, I'm so glad my students, or our students, not mine, I'm so glad our students get to have you again. They're so full of knowledge and so wonderful that our students are really lucky to have them. All right, back to the temperature check results after I've given you all of that fun stuff. What was really nice to see after I could breathe again was that our team ranked us high on communication. I was really surprised. I'm always trying to hone my communication skills. In fact, one of my faculty mentioned that I send just the right amount of information. And they know that when they see an email from me, they're going to check that first, whether it's in the Canvas room or through email. As a side note, I'm constantly working on being cautious with how much I send. As an over-communicator, and you can ask anybody from the College of Ed or any committee I've been on, I am an over-communicator. I love to process aloud, talk through stuff, interrupt people around me as part of my conversation style, and really dig deep. But I've had to really hone that skill and dial it back while working with my faculty. My partners now, as I think of them, love when I follow Grice's maxims, and this is something out of linguistics and teaching English as a second language, where we demonstrate quality in our communication, we're succinct without a lot of filler information, and we follow up with what we say we're going to do. So by sending them the right amount of information that is quality, relevant, truthful, and succinct, and respecting their important role in the program. For anything else, I put the information in our faculty lounge, and then I send a quick snippet that they can find that information in the lounge. Alan, Jen, and dialing back are words that don't often collide in the same sentence, which is why I'm the one who has to mention it. But you know what? Our team's not perfect. As with any team, there are growth opportunities. And now that we feel comfortable with each other, they're asking for more time to connect with each other. I giggled when I saw that on the results. I love it because honestly, their desire to want to meet with each other more helps me to feel that the road I've paved is now going both ways. They feel comfortable with me in our partnership and now want to build more with each other. In this virtual arena where it is difficult to connect, they're asking to connect more with each other. And I find this to be such a great compliment to this team of individuals because they're demonstrating that willingness to engage, belong, contribute, and be productive at Ashford, which will always lead to success for our students. So while driving over here to Germany, my husband and I were listening to this really neat podcast. I really highly recommend it. It's called Work Life, and it's by Dr. Adam Grant. He is an organizational psychologist and professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and he does this really fun TED podcast. And his idea about the whole podcast is how to make work suck less. That's just what he says right out there in his introduction. And he shared this really interesting idea. He said that those who are fired or leave a job under adverse conditions can suffer from something called traumatic job growth. And it was interesting that I heard this as I was bouncing around these ideas about gig economy and who's going to be the person for my faculty. And all I could focus on was that keyword of growth. From being in a less positive adjunct position, I learned what I could be and how I could do things better if I were to ever have a team like Aaron had a team. I've worked hard and have learned a great deal from traumatic job growth, but I do not want my faculty to experience traumatic job growth. I just want them to experience job growth. And I can imagine all too often in a gig economy that this sort of thing happens. So as I was holding my breath and waiting for that feedback to come back, I was really glad to see that the partnerships that I have been really trying to forge are unfolding. And not only did I see what I hoped, my faculty felt free enough to tell me what was lacking. Our partnership, our agreement to cooperate to move our program forward is leading where we want it to go. So taking those really small steps and knowing it took a year and a half to make movement and progress has resulted in a great team. And you know what? I am bragging. I am bragging about this team because they are an amazing group of professionals. And I could not do what I do without this team of professionals. So help me understand what I might be missing. What are some things you are doing that has helped to forge the partnership with your own teams? Yes, it was Work Life, and it was by Adam Grant. Yes, and he is with the University of Pennsylvania. I agree. And you know what, Michelle? I love that you're piping in because your name popped up in a meeting less than an hour ago of a faculty who has really done a lot to bridge those partnerships. And I heard rumor about a virtual cocktail hour. Feel free to tell us more about that because I like that idea of the virtual cocktail hour. So what are some things you guys are doing to help? Yeah, Michelle, I love that. Michelle, aren't you the one who also does the virtual Halloween costume party where you put all of the pictures of your faculty and their families together? I plan to steal that idea from you when October comes around. Absolutely. Michelle does win the virtual engagement game. She is someone we can certainly learn a lot from. I'm just going back through. Thank you, Kelly. I try to be brave and I try to not have defensiveness, and it's not easy. But it's important. It's important for us to be able to hear, to make progress, to grow. Claire, I like that. I like that you're reaching out to associate faculty at the beginning of course to orient them to the course. I'm fortunate that I have the same core faculty of 10 to 15 who've taught these courses over and over. And as we make upgrades, been around my kids and their Xboxes too long. As we're making improvements to our courses, they will send me stuff that they're using. So part of the faculty lounge that we're building is coming from them. We pool all of our resources for the courses so that we all have something to draw from when we're absolutely exhausted. So Jesse tried something new a month ago after hiring an associate faculty member and enjoyed the one-on-one Zoom. Oh, you did send out a meet for coffee, 75%. That's great. You know, I've had to do, because of, granted, because I'm on the other side of the world right now, I've done coffee mornings and I've done wine evenings. Something else that I've done that my faculty brought up that my faculty really like that I didn't put in here was that I do, and granted my program is smaller, I don't have a Forbes, I don't have a ECE, I don't have a psychology sized program. I do all college office hours. So I do office hours for my own courses, but then I open those office hours up to everybody in my course. My goal is to try to find things that takes the load off of my faculty as much as possible. Since I'm the full-time faculty, I feel like I have more flexibility with my time. So when I do office hours, I'll devote just an hour or two to my own personal enrolled students, and then I open it up to the rest of the program. And then I'll send them the email. They send the email out to their students saying, hey, by the way, this other faculty is doing office hours, feel free to log in. And it's really interesting. I've had some really great connections with students from doing that. And my faculty really, that was one thing they did mention, is that they appreciate that I do that. That I meet with students to help them understand and move forward. Yeah, Jesse, that's a great idea. Just asking them how they're doing. I had one faculty have a baby recently, and she went on maternity leave, which was just so lovely. But then asking her to send pictures and let's share and let's just all celebrate this wonderful move in this person's life is really a fun way to show support. Kathy, you know, I love that idea. I've done that with students when I've been in different parts, going through different states, that I will meet up with students. I haven't been in an area where my faculty have lived, unfortunately, but I love that idea. I want to do that too. Tamika's in the process of collecting ideas, instructor guides, to steal the coffee or happy hour idea. Yeah, I like that. That's a really great idea too. I like that. Michelle, that's something we're encouraged to do as well, that when we do make upgrades to a course, that we have some sort of a broad meeting and then record it so that there's some record of showing faculty that what we've updated, what has changed. And that always works really well. Canvas area called the Faculty Club Hub. Yep, we call ours the Faculty Lounge. And it was interesting, I sent out just a quick email to faculty and said, I have this room, what do you want to call it? I don't just want to call it a faculty room. And of course, we're all teachers. So it was why don't we just call it the lounge? That was one of the things they talked about, that they missed having that meetup place to share and exchange ideas. So that's our place to meet up and share ideas. And we share emails and we post different things to each other. Lisa's saying, a brilliant way to connect, for the program chair to be connected to the learners in the program. Yes, absolutely, Lisa. My faculty can drop by at any time. Even in this country, I have, being overseas, I still have a voice over internet protocol phone, and they can text me and call me. I'm never unreachable unless I'm asleep, and then they know I just won't pick up my phone. But yeah, they're all allowed to come. Anybody can come, and my faculty are able to call and text and whatever they need. One thing that did come up that I thought was interesting that made me take pause was one faculty saying, you know, what would be really great is if you went through the courses as they started to check for missing links. And I thought, that's actually a really good idea that I had not thought of. I just wait for someone to tell me, oh, there's a link missing. I assume everything's okay. And now I'm thinking maybe I should be, you know, once a month taking a look through those links. And it doesn't take a huge amount of time to do that. It's something that we can do. Lisa, you know what? For days and time for meeting, there's never a good time for everybody. There really isn't. So what I try to do is I try to do a morning time and evening time, and I set it up so that I do 6 a.m. to usually 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific time to catch anybody who can swing by in the morning. And then in the evening, I try to do a 5, maybe 3 to 6 or 3 to 7 Pacific time, so I can catch afternoon and evening. And I do add weekends. I see you popping on, Kate. I'm sorry. I told you guys I get long-winded. You have to interrupt me. I do lots of office hours, and I record them for students and faculty. So sorry, guys. Yep, you got to interrupt me. I'll keep going.
No. Jen, thank you so much. Thank you guys all so much for joining us. I hope that I see a lot of people are talking about they're taking notes. I hope that throughout this series that you're hearing from people that you normally wouldn't hear from. And so we're able to share ideas across colleges because you guys are at the forefront of engaging our faculty. You are the ones that make the difference.